Okay, I saw this viral tweet and I absolutely must discuss it with y'all because I have so many thoughts. Okay, first let's read it together. So this says House of the Dragon would have flopped hard if Game of Thrones had never aired. With its mediocre writing, the show's popularity is purely derived from Daenerys' impact. Now, as someone who is a huge House of the Dragon fan, a huge Game of Thrones fan who loves George R. R. Martin and his works, I'm really curious what y'all think about these words. Do you think in an alternate universe where House of the Dragon had aired sans Game of Thrones had not been developed yet for television, House of the Dragon was our first visual entry into this world, do you think that it would have done well? I think personally the amount of storytelling that they were able to cram into season 1 of House of the Dragon is incredibly impressive. While I'm not so sure yet about season 2 because we've only had one episode, I think that the storytelling, the character arcs were all very fascinating to me. And while they did make some changes from the source material, I thought overall season 1 of House of the Dragon was pretty stellar, pretty incredible acting performances, casting was on point. But this does beg the interesting question about audience, and does a show like this only have such a voracious audience because they had 8 years of world building and entry points for fans to then be able to readily and easily access this show? Do you think that fans who had not read the books, had not seen the first series, would be able to access House of the Dragon season 1 and still enjoy it on its own merits? Or is a lot of it predicated on having seen the original 8 seasons, having some familiarity with Westeros, with Fire and Blood, with George R. R. Martin's universes, with A Song of Ice and Fire? I don't know. I'm curious what you think. I do think that Daenerys was the most impactful character of the Game of Thrones universe, especially because I believe the reason people disliked season 8 so much was primarily because of the implosion of her arc specifically. There were other characters who had disappointing arcs and who didn't come to satisfying conclusions, but I think the one that rubbed people the wrong way the most was Daenerys. Daenerys, Khaleesi, Emilia Clarke, the woman of our hearts, she was really positioned to be this revolutionary figure who was liberatory, emancipatory, who was going to lead a whole new world, who's going to break the wheel, and her descent into madness, while some, uber purists might say is a bit true to her familial heritage and the text, did feel like a huge deviation of what we were promised as an audience and what would have just been the nice thing to do. I mean, come on, we suffered so much during those 8 seasons. Do we really have to end on such a horrible note? But I think with this tweet, which is slowly gaining tons of popularity and starting a lot of discussions, is asking, which I think is a really interesting question when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy universes. Do the prequels and the sequels and the spin-offs have the ability to stand on their own as a piece of art? Or is their merits purely predicated on what came before them? And I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments.